So just to jump in, obviously you're a pioneer. How long ago did you start Jimbo's in San Diego? It's like,
Let me just say, I don't really care for the mega food product. So hopefully you don't edit that out.
No.
Don't start that.
Perfect.
No, I've been involved in the industry since 1973 and opened my first Jimbo's in 1984.
Perfect. And what drove you to get into the industry? What was the main driver?
I think initially it just was coincidental. I finished 1 year of college. Now you're going to date me by figuring this out, but I had finished 1 year of college and
We're
decided
probably the healthiest one of the shows, so it's okay.
I just said, ever since I can remember, I've been going to school and I wanted to take a break, so I came out. My brother was living out in San Diego, so I came out and visited him, and he was working at like an alternative school that had a connection with was like a workers collective group of people that were buying food together and selling it, divvying it up among themselves, and they had moved into a one-story or one-bedroom house, and converted that into a grocery store. So it was only about maybe less than a year old when I got involved, and I remember that I started as a volunteer, and I was embarrassed that I was getting $1 worth of food credit for every 3 hours that I was working.
Wow.
So it's 33 cents an hour. I was so embarrassed that I refused to take the money, and but after a while I said, all right, I got involved in it and started to learn about eating well and changing my diet, and the rest has followed me around.
That's great. Well, Jimbo's is a real institution in the San Diego community. I mean, you've got loyal customers that probably been with you for years, right? What would you say is some of the reasons why the community has really embraced, Jimbo's?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I think part of it is the consistency that we've had with our customers, and that customers feel very confident when they come into the store that the products that we have on the shelves are high quality products, and they know that we've taken stances in various different areas around like GMOs and organics, and so I think we've built a lot of customer loyalty. I think we hopefully are a little more nimble than some of the larger companies because we're independently owned. I believe that our team has done an amazing job of reaching out to the community and making them aware of who we are, what we do. A lot of education, certainly. We don't really focus that much on price, though price has become a little more of an issue now that a lot of these products are available almost anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But our focus has always been working with the community, trying to give back to the community in some form or fashion without really advertising our dealing with price. So we've donated over $1 million to various different charities through the years, and we continue to do that. So I think our name is pretty well respected. I like to think that, and I think that helps build loyalty. One story that I always like to tell is when I hired my first director of marketing, she asked me what did I want my focus to be, and I said, partly because I had young kids, I said, I really think it's important that we establish ourselves in the schools. And she said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, whatever they want, whatever they need, let's make a point of trying to donate to them. And schools always, no matter what kind of community you're in, always looking for support. Mm-hmm. And so we would help them in whatever form or fashion. And I remember about 2 or 3 years later, I got a call one time from a parent that wanted a donation. And she said to me, I was wondering, I hate to ask you this, but I was wondering if you could make this donation. I said, well, why do you hate to ask? He says, because I know you're going to say yes. And I said, wow, that means we really have succeeded in reaching our goal. And that was important to me because we wanted to make sure that they knew that we were there to support them. And I was doing it more because I think it's important to expose young children to natural foods and know that there's an alternative, and not that I would stand up and proselytize anything about the way I eat or way somebody should eat, but at least expose them to high quality natural foods and let young kids make their choice as they grow older, which is what we did with our 4 children.
Right.
So
Well, they don't usually get that exposure, so that's huge.
Sure.
You named several things there. Let's try to break them down a little bit.
Okay.
I think you named one of the things you named was team.
Mhm.
Like, talk to me a little bit about how you invest in your team, what you expect from your team, your philosophy around, how many people to have on the floor. Because that's key, right? I
Right.
mean, when you get a lot of competition, the first thing you start thinking about is your expenses, and a lot of times that's the first place you go is your team. And I think you would agree that's probably not the best place to go. But what's your philosophy around training, expectations? How to utilize a good team on the floor?
Well, when we were one small store, I was on the floor and knew every customer, and not every customer, but I knew so much about so many customers. And the bigger we've grown, the less I can be accessible, though I still know a lot of customers in a lot of the stores, especially the one store that I tend to be at the most. So the importance then becomes that the connection between the Jimbos and the philosophy has to transpire from someone else besides me, and that becomes the team. And whether that's upper management, frontline employees, whatever. So we typically, when we hire someone, we have a whole bunch of trainings that they go through. Product knowledge, customer service. We take them through a bunch of trainings that they need to have access to, so that they can be better prepared to understand who we are, our philosophy, and better interact with the customers. Customer service is very impactful. I mean, to me, you can buy a box of cereal at a natural organic cereal at 50 different places in probably a 10-mile radius in San Diego. So what separates you? Is the price? Well, a number of our stores are in high demographic areas, so there's high income, so price doesn't really separate it. So what is the difference? Why would people shop at your store? And part of it is, not part of it, a lot of it is customer loyalty. And it's also the differences in the perimeter, where you have an ability to be different. Because, like I said, a box of cereal is going to be the same box of cereal, but the produce can be different, the meats can be different, the deli could be different. And in all those areas, we try to strive to carry the highest quality products. Especially in our deli, we use everything organic unless it's really not available. And the other part that becomes the key component is customer service. And that is an element that, no matter how small or big you are, should be an important part of your philosophy. And so that is really where the dedication, the developing loyalty from your customers, because people like to go somewhere where they're recognized and they have somebody they can talk to, they feel comfortable. Even when you look at supplements, which I'm sure concerns your area of expertise. Supplements you can buy on the on websites now, and you can probably buy them much cheaper, but they don't dispense the same kind of information, the same kind of personal contact that you have when you're dealing with an issue, and you talk to an employee or staff member, and they can give you feedback, and so you build trust and loyalty in that, and that's really important to develop that relationship where a customer says, I might be able to get it cheaper, but I like going to Jimbo's because there's someone there, or the people who work in that department will always steer me into the right thing. It's not about overselling, it's not about upselling, it's about really trying to help the customer fulfill their needs. And so we try to preach that all the time.
Do you have a philosophy on the number of staffers that are on the floor at any given time?
We want to make sure that every customer that comes through the door has a positive experience, and whatever that takes. I made every time we open up a store, I over budget our staff, because I believe that our sales, two things, I always overestimate best case scenario what our sales are going to be, so I always think they're going to be higher than what I've been told they should be. And I also want to make sure that the customer, especially in the beginning, I shouldn't say especially in the beginning, but since you don't know how many customers you're going to get, I want to make sure they have a positive experience. Mm-hmm. And when they open up with lower sales, I never cut back. I've never laid off anybody. And through attrition or building up sales at the same time, levels itself out. And I know I've had that experience where as people leave, I don't replace them because our sales don't warrant it. And I've made mistakes where the sales didn't warrant it, and, people left on their own volition, and I've looked back on it and said, you know what, we cut back too soon because the customer service wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's not like a finite number, it's whatever it takes to provide the best customer service possible. And because I believe that if everything goes right, when if you're on the tipping point of whether you should add someone or not, add them, and hopefully the sales will build up due to the fact that you added someone, because they can now maybe reach out to more customers.
Yeah.
Certainly you don't want to look like a fool and have, if your department is only doing $1,000 a day, you don't want to have 20 people walking the floor.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. But there's a balance. But I would always err on the side of being conservative, making sure your customer gets a positive experience.
How do you know the customer's getting a positive experience?
We get. There are times when I don't get around to all the stores, but we ask for customers to give us feedback a lot of times directly through suggestion box, but more often than not it comes through the website, and I can tell by the questions they ask or the concerns they raise whether they have a good positive customer service. As a matter of fact, in this one example that I just gave you, I could tell that too many customers were coming in during lunchtime, and the amount of business was just crazy during lunchtime, and we weren't able to handle it because you get one customer that says it, not so much, but when you get 3, 4, 5 that say that, you're really, they're speaking for maybe 10 other people. And so I said, I was told by the other senior management, listen, that's what the budget is. I said, I don't care about the budget. We need to service this group of people that comes in during lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So whether we add staff members, whether we say everybody who's in the back of the store, in the office, for whatever reason, they come out and support that, because we got to take care of our customer. The last thing you need is to have a customer walk away and say, hey, they didn't have a good experience, because the best form of advertising you can have is your customer.
Absolutely. Well, that your focus on customer service is very evident. So you mentioned training your team, mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned educating the consumer.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about that component of your business, and is that formalized? Is it something that you guys schedule and focus on, or what's that piece of the business look like? Educating
the team, I'm not really actively involved, but we do, like I said, we do trainings. On various different topics, but then we encourage our buyers, encourage vendors, manufacturers to come in on more on the supplement and HABA side, to come in and train the staff members, to let them know, bring their expertise in to explain about the product, so they can be much more aware of what that product does.